Right, hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replicate this line chart, which comes from a New York Times article. So let's get started. I will say that some of this code can be refactored, just made more concise. I'm not going to do that in this demo. You can do that by changing defaults and so on. And you can see that code in my book, Matplotlib for Storytellers, or in the GitHub repo, which will all be linked below. Okay, so with what we're doing today, first you see that I've imported Matplotlib, pyplot, and then pandas, and I'll show you a real basic version of this chart you can make in Matplotlib. So here's the data. The numbers are the numbers, and then I do a simple df.plot using the integration between pandas and Matplotlib. Real basic titling and labeling. The chart is adequate insofar as I have all the numbers there, the data is right, and so on. It's labeled, but it's just not that pretty. So we want to do something a little bit better for someone who cares about data visualization principles. So that's what we're going to start doing here below. So this is what we're working off of, the same thing really. I've changed it to the object-oriented interface by creating the fig and ax variables for the figure and axes objects. And we're just going to start going from here. So first thing I want to do is change the dimensions of this figure. I'm going to do that with the fig size argument. So let's make it 5 by 7 width to height. So something like this, a little bit closer to the dimensions of the original chart. And then I want to change the face color of the axes. And so I'm going to put in a kind of light gray. Like this. It's using an RGB code. So that's not exactly the same. You know, this is all going to be an approximate replication. And I have that. Let's keep it moving. Something else is that the axes limits are not exactly what we have in the original image, original plot. This was the exact original, which I pasted in from the New York Times article. So you notice there's no space, extra axis space past the lines here. So I'm going to make the limits a little bit smaller to be exactly 2019 to 2020. All right, so I've got that. And something else you're going to notice while you have your focus on the x-axis is that these labels are a bit strange. So they're not that easy to read. Matplotlib is using an offset, and that's just a way for Matplotlib to get rid of some of the extra characters that would otherwise be here. So yeah, you have this 2020 right here in scientific notation, and then the offset is 2020 minus 1 equals 2019, being that data point right there. So I want to get rid of that, and I'm going to do that by changing the tick label format. And that is done with this method, tick label format. I've got to specify which axis I want. And then to turn off the offset, I'll say use offset equals false. So that does that. I need to change the actual x-axis ticks though. So I'll do that with this. And I have that. Okay, so we've fixed that. Something else still wrong with this is these labels are on the bottom, whereas in the New York Times version, they were on the top. And then we're going to change the spacing a little bit. So first, let's put them to the top, and we're also going to get rid of these little tick lines right there. So similar thing, we're going to take the axis object and then go to the axis, x-axis object, and set tick params. We'll say length equals 0. That's going to get rid of the little tick lines that were there. Label top equals true, and label bottom equals false. All right, that is shaping up. What we have left to do is to change the horizontal alignment of these things. So I'm going to get that with, first by accessing the label. So we can do that with get xtick labels. And this would be 2019 and 2020. I'm going to access the first one with this index at place 0. And then there's a set horizontal alignment set HA method. And I'll say left for the first one. So I'll move the 2019 over so that it's anchored at the left of the label. And then I'll do the same thing. Same thing with the other label 2020. And I'll set that horizontal alignment to be towards the right. All right, so I've got that settled. Let's keep going. So there's a few things I could change with the actual plot, the lines in the plot. One is there are no markers here. You notice that the original plot, there are little dots at the end of the lines. So I can go back up to this df.plot. I'll say marker equals, and then a lowercase o. I'll change the size. And let's make the lines a little bit wider. We'll try a line width of 3. See if we like that. Okay, I'm reasonably happy with that, except for the fact that these markers are getting cut off. And you notice originally they extended past the axis limits. So by default, these are getting clipped. And I can change that with clip on equals false. All right, not bad. So we're going to keep going. And a few things left. One is we're going to get rid of this legend and start labeling our data directly. So I can access the legend with ax.legend and then do a set visible is false. So that gets rid of that. And while we're using set visible, I also want to get rid of the borders here. Okay. I want to get rid of this border on the left, on the top, and on the right. We're going to leave what's on the bottom just to match what we see in the New York Times chart. And so these borders, these lines are called spines. And you can access those with ax.spines and then a particular one with a key like that and say set visible to be false. So that would get rid of the spline on the left. So we got to do that for each left, top, and right. I'll do that in a loop though. So I'll say for key in left, right, and top. I'll set it to be not visible like so. All right, we've got that under control. Okay, so now we're missing labels for everything. We don't even know what the blue line means. We're missing titles, but also grid lines. And we want to change the way these wide tick labels are done as well. So let's go ahead and think about the wide ticks. And the grid first. So I could say grid true, and I would create this grid. So I have this line though, because it's actually putting in grid lines for the x-axis as well. It would be more apparent if I had more x ticks, but I just want grid lines for the y-axis, so I'm going to change it to this. All right, so that looks better. But I do want the color to be white, and I want to make the line width a little bit bigger, just like so. Then I want to get rid of the labels on the left, and instead I'll have normal string labels from the bottom. So I'm going to set my y ticks like this. Let's assign that to be a variable so that we can reference it later. Okay, and that changes our y limits to be closer to what we saw in the original chart. So we have that. You might be tempted to just get rid of the y ticks. So if afterwards I said y ticks is just an empty list, that gets rid of those labels on the left, which I do want to get rid of, but it also gets rid of the grid. So that's why I'm not setting this to be an empty list. Instead what I want to be an empty list is the y tick labels with that specific method. So I do that. And then I'll start changing the tick params. Just like I did for the x-axis, I want the length to be 0 here. We see the difference was I didn't want these lines there. So get rid of those by setting their length to be 0. Okay. But now I need some kind of labeling there, and I'm going to do that with simply adding text. So I'm going to do that like this. I'm going to put it in the middle of the chart. And make labels like that. So I've set the vertical alignment to be at the bottom, the horizontal alignment to be centered, and I have something like this. So that looks like it's working pretty well for no time. And then I want to do something similar for the y ticks at 2, 4, 6, and 8. So I'm going to do that in a loop as well. So for the y tick in y ticks, index or slice it like that. So I'm referencing this piece of the list. I'll put it in the middle at 2019.5. I'll put it at the y tick location, and then the string I'll get it like this. I'll use a string formatter. Use bottom alignment for the vertical, and on the horizontal, center it again. So have it like that. Not bad. If you would like, you might want a little bit more space between the string and the grid line there. So I'll just say plus 0.01 for these, just to move those labels up a little bit. All right. So I have that. Now I need to start labeling the lines. So there's labels on the left, like this line corresponded to the amount of time being spent alone. and I need to just say label this as alone on the left, and then on the right, I'll say plus 57 minutes to emphasize the increase from 2019 to 2020. So first, let's say this for the alone piece. The Y value here, I'm going to get from our data frame. Okay, so again, I'll show it down here so we know what we're referencing. You know, I could just put in 6 by itself, but I'm going to get it like this. The index is 2019, and the column we want is alone. The string we want is alone. The color we want for this, we want it to match the line. So I'm going to use C0, which would be index place 0 in our color map. So that should be that blue. Okay, not very readable the way it is right there. So I'm going to change the horizontal alignment so that it is towards the right. Like that. I'll change the vertical alignment to be centered. Like that. 2019, I probably could take a little bit off that to move it a little bit further to the left like that. I'm going to keep reusing this. Just going to call that X, like that. And then when I go to the next line, I can use X again. So the next line here is going to be with people outside the household, and that's the orange line. All right, so very similar to the above. The color is going to be C1. It's the next color in our color map. Horizontal alignment right, vertical alignment center. I forgot the actual string. Like that. And if you look at the New York Times chart, there's actually a line break in that. So I can put that in the string with this \n. Do it like so. Vertical alignment, I will change be towards the bottom. I'm going to create more space this way for my label for the green line. Okay. So let's go on to the green line with household members only. Let's not forget our string for the actual label. And there are line breaks in that as well. Again, /n, like this. Color will be C2. Horizontal alignment will be right. Vertical alignment, we'll say, is top. All right, so we've got that. At this point, you might want to change the font or make the font weight bold, something like that. And so we're getting into this point where we have some of these keyword arguments being repeated. HA is right over and over. So I'm actually going to create a dictionary up here with these things that we're going to apply to each one of these. I'm going to change the font to Liberation Sans, change the font weight to be bold. I put all of this into a dictionary and assign that to be left text style. So I'll get rid of the repeated HA equals right here. And then this dictionary, I can pass each of these as keyword arguments by unpacking the dictionary with double star. It's just a good way to make your text more concise. Make your code more concise, sorry. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with that. What I need next are the labels on the right. So I'm going to do that underneath what I've already done. But I'm also going to create a right text style dictionary with the things I'm going to be using over and over again. Let's say the size, we can increase the size for the other one up to 12. Here the size will be 11, and then we'll use this same font, but we won't make it bold. And we can make the color, I think, dark gray. I think that's in our default. So let's do this. So something very similar. We're going to mark this towards the right. We're going to get the value at 2020 instead of 2019. And then our string will be how the value changed. So say plus 57 minutes. And then put in our right text style. All right, so you have that. Looks like we want to change the centering, probably. So we'll say VA equals center. And we also want to put this further to the right. So I'll try this, a little more padding by hand. This dark gray could be a little bit darker, I believe. So I'm going to create my own dark gray. 0.2, 0.2, 0.2, and see how that works. It's an RGB color. Okay, I like that better. So I'm going to stick with that and keep it going. With people outside the household, we get that value by changing how we indexed our data frame. With people outside the household, that fell, so we need a new caption here. I believe it was -1 hour and change. So let's go up here, -1 hour and 33 minutes. Double check again, they include the and, 1 hour and 33 minutes. All right, that works. One last one, we had I think a plus 33 minutes. Or no, it's really not 33 again. But time with household members would have increased between 2019 and 2020. And that increase was plus 31. So that will be our caption here. Like that. All right. I like that. Let's see the color. Yeah, the color is good. These are all that dark gray coming in from right text style. So the main thing we have left is the title and the subtitle. So let's create the title with ax.setTitle. And the title is A Lonely Year. I'll make it a little bit bigger than normal. We'll go to 15. And I misspelled lonely. All right, so that's a little bit better. And then we've got to increase the Y position of this to open up some space here. And that space right there, that's where we can add the subtitle. Let's see if I change the font name again. Put everything in this Liberation Sans. Make it bold. Okay. Now it's time for their subtitle. Subtitle was average time spent during per day during waking hours, May through December in 2020 versus 2019. And then we have a line break after the word through. So replace that space with a /n. And to my knowledge, there's not a subtitle function. And I want it formatted different than the title. So that means I've got to add a new text object. And okay, so my X and Y, I'm actually not going to use the default data coordinates here. I'm going to say 0.5 and 1.08. We'll try that. Okay, the string will be the subtitle, but for these coordinates to make sense, I've got to tell Matplotlib that I want it transformed into axes coordinates. So now the 0.5 means halfway from the beginning of the axis to the end. And 1.08 says just a little bit above where the axis ended in the y direction. So let's see how that looks. All right, not bad, not bad. We will change the font to be our usual Liberation Sans. We could change the color. Let's go ahead and do that. Change to the dark gray we've already used in a few places. And let's show the plot just to get rid of this text that's being shown in our notebook. All right, so this is pretty near complete. If we want to change anything, I think it would be the colors here, and that this blue line, again, scrolling up here, was orange. I'm not going to bother doing that in this tutorial, but you might want to change the colors for these labels and for these ticks as well. So let's scroll up to where we made these labels up here. So let me take this dark gray, which I defined in the middle of all this, put it at the very top so that it would be accessible if you're running this for the first time. And I'll change the color right here to dark gray. I'll change the color there to dark gray. And let's change the color on our X tick labels as well, which I can do here with label color dark gray. Okay. So I'm getting this warning. I think that's related to the fact that I'm using an RGB array actually in this label color thing. So let's see if that goes away if I do this. It does, but it's a little bit lighter than I wanted it. So I'm just going to go back to, even though the warning is there, it still gave me the plot okay. I'm going to go back like this. I like this better. I wish this weren't there, but we can live with that. And yeah, that is pretty much the whole demo. Comment if there's anything else you'd like me to address. Check out my book, and thanks for watching.